Weekdays decide strong futures, not the loud days, not the winning days, the days when everything feels heavy. Those days matter more than all the others combined. Anyone can perform when they feel good. Anyone can smile when things are working. Anyone can stay confident when the path is clear. That doesn't define you. What defines you is how you move on the days you don't feel like it. The days you're tired, the days you're doubting yourself, the days the results aren't showing, the days when quitting feels reasonable. Weekdays expose the truth. They strip away motivation. They remove excitement. They leave you alone with your standards. This is where futures are decided. Most people treat weekdays like permission to slow down, to lower the bar, to make excuses, to disappear until they feel better. That choice costs more than they realize. Because every weekday you surrender, you train your mind to escape. You teach it that discomfort is a stop sign. You build a habit of backing down. Strong futures aren't built that way. Weekdays reveal true discipline, not the days when energy is high, not the days when confidence is loud, not the days when everything is clicking. Discipline is exposed on the days you feel drained, unfocused, uninspired, and heavy. Those are the days that remove the mask. Those are the days that show who you really are. Anyone can look disciplined when motivation is present. Anyone can work hard when the reward feels close. Anyone can stay consistent when progress is obvious. That version of discipline doesn't matter. It's fragile. It disappears the moment conditions change. True discipline doesn't depend on circumstances. It operates regardless of mood, fatigue, or doubt. Weekdays strip everything away. They take motivation first, then confidence, then excitement. What remains is your standard, your rule, your commitment to the work. If discipline is real, you move anyway. If it's fake, you hesitate, you negotiate, you delay. This is where most people fail without realizing it. They think discipline is a personality trait. It's not. It's a decision made repeatedly under discomfort. Weekdays are uncomfortable by nature. The body feels slow, the mind feels foggy. The voice inside starts offering excuses that sound logical. Rest today, skip this session, tomorrow will be better. That voice is always convincing on weekdays. Discipline is the ability to hear that voice and move anyway. Weekdays don't ask for intensity. They ask for obedience. Obedience to your standards. Obedience to the work you committed to before you were tired, before you were frustrated, before you were tested. That's why weekdays matter more than strong ones. Strong days don't challenge discipline. Weekdays demand it. Every time you show up on a weekday, you send a message to yourself. You say your word matters more than your feelings. You say discomfort doesn't control your behavior. You say you can be trusted under pressure. That message compounds. It builds self-respect. It builds identity. It builds an internal reputation that doesn't rely on results or praise. When you skip weekdays, the opposite happens. You train your mind to associate discomfort with escape. You reinforce the habit of quitting quietly. No one else sees it, but your mind remembers. The next weekday comes sooner. The excuses arrive faster. Discipline erodes without noise. Weekdays are where discipline is either sharpened or dulled. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's about being extreme. It's not. It's about being consistent. Weekdays don't require heroics. They require presence. They require you to do the minimum standard you promised yourself, even when doing more feels impossible. Discipline isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just showing up and not leaving. There is a difference between listening to your body and obeying your excuses. Weekdays blur that line. That's why discipline must be clear before weakness arrives. Standards must be defined in advance. When you decide ahead of time what you do on low energy days, there is no debate when they come. Weekdays reveal whether your discipline is emotional or structural. Emotional discipline disappears with emotion. Structural discipline survives it. Structure says this is what we do, no matter how we feel. That removes friction. It removes drama. It removes choice. This is how elite consistency is built. Not by being perfect, by being reliable. Weekdays test reliability. They ask whether you show up only when it's convenient or whether you show up because that's who you are. Discipline is not proven by intensity on your best days. It's proven by restraint, control, and commitment on your worst ones. Weekdays don't need you to feel strong. They need you to act aligned. The people who build powerful futures aren't the ones with endless energy. They're the ones who refuse to let low energy dictate their standards. They understand that weekdays are unavoidable, but surrender is optional. Weekdays reveal discipline, because it's not built in comfort. It's built in resistance. It's built when the mind wants out and the body keeps moving. It's built when excuses feel reasonable and you ignore them. It's built when no one is watching and nothing feels rewarding. That's where discipline becomes real. That's where it stops being an idea and becomes an identity. That's where it separates people who talk from people who build, people who plan from people who execute, people who dream from people who become. Weekdays reveal true discipline, because when everything else is gone, discipline is all that's left. Effort without motivation builds power. That's the truth most people avoid because it removes their favorite excuse. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. It depends on mood, energy, praise, and comfort. Power is different. Power is built when emotion is irrelevant. Power is built when you move anyway. Most people confuse motivation with commitment. They think they need to feel ready to act. They think energy comes first. It doesn't. Action comes first. Effort creates energy. Effort creates clarity. Effort creates belief. Waiting for motivation is how people stay average while convincing themselves they're being patient. There are days when motivation disappears completely. No excitement, no fire, no confidence. Just wait. Those days are not accidents. They are invitations. They ask whether you are driven by feeling or by standards. When motivation is gone, effort becomes pure. No hype, no emotion, just execution. That's where power starts forming. Effort without motivation rewires the mind. It teaches your brain that action is not dependent on emotion. It breaks the pattern of delay. It removes negotiation. The mind learns a new rule: we move regardless. That rule becomes dangerous over time. It creates reliability. It creates trust with yourself. It creates strength that doesn't collapse when things get uncomfortable. Motivation creates short bursts. Effort creates permanence. Anyone can sprint when they feel inspired. Few can walk forward when everything feels heavy. That walk is where strength lives. That walk is where discipline stops being an idea and becomes behavior. When you work without motivation, you strip the ego out of the process. There's no performance, no audience, no validation, just work. That's why it builds power. Power doesn't need approval. Power doesn't need recognition. Power just shows up and applies pressure. Effort without motivation is uncomfortable because it exposes excuses. You can't blame mood. You can't blame energy. You can't blame circumstances. You're left with a simple question: will you do the work or not? That honesty is rare. That honesty builds strength. Most people never touch. This is how real confidence is created. Not by telling yourself you're capable, by proving it when you don't feel capable. Every rep done without motivation adds weight to your identity. It tells your mind that you are not controlled by emotion. Over time, that identity becomes solid, unshakable. People chase motivation because it feels good. Power doesn't care how it feels. Power is built through consistency under discomfort, through effort when there's no emotional reward, through showing up on days that feel pointless. Those days are not pointless. They are the foundation. Effort without motivation builds power because it creates momentum. One action leads to another. One decision makes the next easier. Even on low energy days, motion generates heat. Stillness kills it. That's why people who wait feel stuck. People who move feel alive. Even when tired, there's a difference between rest and avoidance. Motivation hides that difference. Effort exposes it. When you move without motivation, you learn the truth about your limits. Most of them are imaginary. Most of them disappear the moment you apply pressure. This is where separation happens. Some people need to feel good to work. Others work to feel strong. One group waits for emotion. The other creates power. One group talks about potential. The other builds it quietly. Effort without motivation builds power because it trains resilience. You stop panicking when energy drops. You stop identifying with moods. You stop letting temporary feelings dictate permanent outcomes. You become stable, reliable, dangerous. The strongest performers are not the most excited. They're the most consistent. They don't ask how they feel. They ask what needs to be done. That question simplifies everything. It removes noise. It creates focus. Effort when motivation is gone is not punishment. It is investment. It is putting work into a future version of yourself who will need that strength. who will face pressure, expectations, consequences. That version of you is built now on the days you don't feel like it. Motivation is a visitor. Power is built to stay. Effort without motivation turns ordinary days into training grounds. It turns weakness into discipline. It turns resistance into capacity. Over time, that effort compounds into something most people mistake for talent, but it was, as never talent, it was repetition, it was standards, it was the refusal to stop when motivation left the room. Futures are shaped in discomfort, not in ease, not in comfort, not in moments when everything feels aligned. The future you live in is built during moments you would rather avoid. Discomfort is the forge. It applies pressure. It reveals weakness. It forces adaptation. Without it, nothing strong is created. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They see it as a warning sign, as something to escape, as proof they are doing something wrong. That belief keeps them trapped. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the signal that growth is happening. Every time you feel stretched, challenged, or exposed, you are standing at the edge of a stronger future. Comfort maintains the present. Discomfort builds the next version. When you stay comfortable, you repeat yesterday. When you choose discomfort, you invest in tomorrow. Futures are not decided by intentions or dreams. They are decided by the moments you lean into difficulty instead of backing away. Discomfort forces honesty. It removes illusion. It shows you what you actually know, what you can actually do, and what you still avoid. When things are easy, flaws stay hidden. When pressure arrives, truth comes out. That truth is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You cannot fix what you refuse to face. Every meaningful skill is built in discomfort. Strength is built under load. Focus is built under distraction. Confidence is built under doubt. Discipline is built under resistance. None of these develop in comfort. They require friction. They require effort that feels heavy. The future rewards those who accept that cost early. People delay discomfort because it feels optional. They tell themselves they will push later, train harder later, focus more later. Later rarely comes. Discomfort avoided today becomes limitation tomorrow. The future does not wait for you to feel ready. It arrives regardless. And when it does, it demands payment in preparation. Discomfort is where habits are formed. On hard days, you either reinforce strength or reinforce escape. Each choice compounds. One path builds resilience. The other builds regret. Futures are shaped quietly, through repeated decisions made when no one is watching and nothing feels rewarding. The mind resists discomfort because it wants certainty. It wants guarantees. Discomfort offers none. It offers effort without promise. That is why it builds real power. You learn to operate without assurance. You learn to perform without applause. You learn to trust process over emotion. When you consistently choose discomfort, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs perfect conditions. You become someone who adapts, someone who endures, someone who moves forward regardless. That identity carries into the future. It influences every decision. It determines how you respond to pressure when it matters most. Discomfort sharpens focus. When things are hard, distractions lose their appeal. Excuses lose credibility. The work becomes clear. This clarity is valuable. It strips away noise. It forces prioritization. Futures built with clarity are deliberate, not accidental. Many people confuse discomfort with damage. They fear it will break them. Avoiding it weakens them instead. Strength comes from controlled exposure, from choosing difficult. Why, rather than being surprised by it. Discomfort faced willingly builds tolerance. Discomfort avoided builds fragility. Every challenge you face is shaping a future version of you. The question is whether that version is capable or compromised. Each uncomfortable action is a vote for capability. Each avoidance is a vote for limitation. These votes accumulate over time. They decide outcomes long before results are visible. Discomfort also teaches patience. Growth rarely feels good in the moment. Progress is often invisible while it is happening. Choosing discomfort requires faith in compounding. It requires belief in work that does not immediately pay off. That belief separates builders from spectators. When pressure increases later, discomfort you faced earlier becomes preparation. What once felt hard becomes normal. What once caused hesitation becomes routine. The future feels lighter because you carried weight in the past. Futures shaped in comfort are fragile. Futures shaped in discomfort are resilient. They can absorb stress, they can handle pressure, They can adapt when conditions change. That resilience is not accidental. It is earned through repeated exposure to difficulty. Discomfort does not promise success. It prepares you for it. It gives you the capacity to handle responsibility, expectation, and consequence. Without that capacity, success collapses under its own weight. The future does not care about how you felt along the way. It reflects what you did consistently. It reflects the discomfort you accepted and the standards you maintained when comfort tempted you to stop. Discomfort is not something to survive. It is something to use. It is the raw material of growth. Every time you choose it, you shape a future that can withstand reality, pressure, and uncertainty, a future built on strength rather than convenience, a future defined by what you were willing to endure when it would have been easier to walk away.